feel really humble standing here, a little bit embarrassed because I'm definitely no more qualified than anyone else in this room to talk about economics. But I am very excited to be here. I got off the sleeper train a few hours ago to arrive in this beautiful place for what looks like a really fabulous day. I didn't know I was going to be here until about 48 hours ago because I'm covering for my colleague who's off sick. So I apologise for the piece of paper, which I'm going to have to refer to. But I'm here as part of the Religious Society of Friends, or Quakers in Britain, or Quakers or Friends. You might have seen meeting houses around the country. There's definitely one in Penzance. And I work for Quaker Peace and Social Witness, which is the bit of that church, if you like, that helps to put Quaker faith into practice and supports Quakers all the way around Britain to do that. I'm not an economist in the sense of someone, as has been described, who cracks numbers or looks at spreadsheets, although I know economists do a lot more than that. But I am someone who cares very deeply about justice and equality and about jobs, about wages, about where my money comes from, where money goes, where we get our food from, who has more money than other people, what we invest in. And for me, that is what economics is. And in that sense, we're all economists, whether or not we've studied it or not. So my job with the Quakers is, like I said, to support Friends to take action on economic justice and sustainability issues. And Quakers around the country, like many other ordinary people, know that something's wrong with the economic system and want to take a stand and want to make a difference. And we also know that the economy that we have is not the only option, as I'm sure you all know too, and has just been said, and that in fact the economy we have is an ideology, and it's based on a certain set of values. And so as Quakers, we're starting to ask the question, what set of values do we really want the economic system to be based on? And how do we talk more about values and feelings when we talk about economics? And I think that that's something that faith communities particularly can add to the debate. We don't often hear about the role of faith communities in this. So I hope to say a little bit about that now. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why Quakers, or Friends, we call Quakers Friends too, so I'll use that word, were asked to say something at the beginning, to step back a little bit from the sort of the details of economics and also all these amazing practical examples that are happening in this area but also elsewhere, to step back a little bit and think about values and principles from the perspective of relatively ordinary people who think about those things. And as I said, faith communities are particularly good at that, but I think we all are too if we just step back and reflect on that. So I think a lot of what I might say now will come as no surprise, but I hope it might be a helpful frame for the day. I should probably just say a little bit about who Quakers are, because I know not all of you will know. Quaker meetings for worship are when friends gather to worship, but also to challenge themselves, question, explore their beliefs, values and ideas. And Quakerism is what's called a priesthood for all believers. So you don't have to have a priest to be able to access God, light, the divine goodness that's in everyone. And from the shared experience of thinking of accessing that, Quakers try and build lives built on a set of principles which will probably be really familiar to all of you too. So principles of simplicity, equality, truth and peace, and they're called the testimonies. And trying to live them out in the world means that Quakers do a lot of social justice work. And that's everything from challenging militarism and Trident and trying to build peace, to challenging austerity and climate change and trying to build a new economy. How do I do this?
Just right arrow.
This one. Okay. So what do Quakers think is wrong with the economic system? Those are just a couple of quotes from previous annual meetings we've had, which are big consensus-based meetings that all Quakers can go to, where Quakers in Britain make all their decisions, so there's thousands of people at them. In 2011, Quakers said, we need to ask the question whether this system is so broken we must urgently work to put in place a different system in which our testimonies can flourish. In 2012, they went on to say, oh yes, it is so broken and we do need to do something about it. So that's kind of what we're doing now. So the signs or the symptoms of this broken system, I'm just going to run through these because we don't want to spend too much time on the bad stuff, because I think today is about thinking about what we're going to do about it. But these are what Quakers sort of reflected, that the signs that the system was so broken we need to do something about it. So the first is climate change. We live in a fossil fuel economy. There are very few economic activities that don't rely on that. And at the moment, 85% of UK energy derives from fossil fuels. And burning them obviously causes climate change. And this graph is from the Carbon Tracker report, which some of you will be familiar with, I'm sure, and it represents what the carbon bubble is and how much of that, how much carbon of that we know about we can burn if we're to stay below 2 degrees. And basically, we have to keep about 80% of fossil fuels in the ground if we've got a 50% chance of staying below 2 degrees. And as we all know, companies continue to explore for more fossil fuels, and the problem gets worse. We're also running out of planet. It's not just the atmosphere we're messing with, it's lots of other things too. And it's becoming increasingly recognised that we can only use up so many finite natural resources. And this graph is from the Stockholm Resilience Centre. And the red ones are the barriers that we're already breaking. And I won't go into that in too much detail, but as we also know, continued economic growth of the type that we're used to could put us over the edge of loads of those barriers, because we assume we have infinite resources, but we don't. This is a picture of Quakers in Manchester doing a vigil about equality, and I'll come back to that, but the third key sign that Quakers sort of, as many of us see that there's something wrong with the system, the economic system, is this increasing gap between the rich and the poor, which is growing. And we can see it all around us, as has just been said. We can see it on our streets. And the UK is one of the most unequal countries, as I'm sure you know, in the OECD at the moment. The only countries more unequal than us are the United States, Chile, Turkey and Israel. We're actually as unequal in the UK now as we were in the 1930s. And then the short term, it's a bit more complicated. I just want to dwell a little bit more on this question of inequality. So some of you might remember that in autumn, I think it was 2013, David Cameron said that the UK was the most equal we've ever been since 1986. And strictly speaking, he was true in official statistics terms, but it's important to put that into context. So we're still more unequal than we were for much of the 70s and 80s. And secondly, it's quite normal in countries like the UK for inequality to fall in a recession, because we have a social security system which, to a limited extent at least, protects people on the lowest income. And thirdly, we need to remember the time frame. That statement was made in November 2013, but because there's a lag in statistics, it referred to data from 2011, 2012, and the biggest social security cuts didn't happen until after then. And since then we've seen more data, which basically shows that inequality is rising and that the poorest 50% of the population have on the whole lost, while the richest have on the whole gained. So for all of those reasons, what we see on the streets does represent what is actually happening in terms of inequality. And many of you will also have seen the Oxfam report that came out last week or a few weeks ago about international inequality as well, that by next year 1% of the world's population will own more wealth than the other 99%. And there are loads of things driving that inequality, which I won't go into, and I'm sure you're all familiar with, like work, tax system, many of which we could analyse in more detail. And I think most shocking for me is the fact that how many of the people who are now living in poverty actually do have jobs, but those jobs aren't giving them a sufficient income to live on. So I just wanted to spend a few minutes saying why Quakers care particularly about inequality. So we have a commitment as a faith community to building equality, but why does economic inequality matter so much? And I think there are three key reasons. First, we care about the actual material and practical impact of inequality. It affects whether or not we're able to flourish as human beings, fulfill our potential and live adventurously, which is a real Quaker phrase. Go out and live adventurously. Second, I think we have something to say as Quakers about how high levels of inequality affect our ability to relate to each other as human beings. It makes it more difficult on a psychological level because we compare what we do or don't have to what other people do or don't have. And it does it on a physical level too, because increasingly the haves and the have-not live in these completely different spheres in society. And I think maybe that's partly what local economics can do, is bring people back together. We live in different places. We use different public services. We have completely different experiences in life. And Quakers talk a lot about seeing that of God in everyone. But how do you see that of God in everyone when you never see those people? And thirdly, we want to speak out about this inequality because of the effect it has on sustainability and on the earth. We urgently, like we know, need to build a more sustainable world that's less destructive to the earth. And lastly, the sort of fourth big sign that the system is broken is the fact that we've put big business above public need, and in fact the need of the earth as well. Multinational companies are among the most powerful organisations on the planet, and they seem to now have more power than people and states. And that's what I think local economics can change too. But bigger than that, I think the thing we really feel is that the relationship between the economy and society has gone the wrong way round. And so some of the things I've been naming are sort of symptoms and to some extent drivers of this broken system, but they also seem to be part of a bigger problem. They don't just happen. They happen because policies, governments, society allows them to happen or even wants them to happen. Somehow, as a society, we've arrived at a place where instead of the economy being a vehicle or a tool to fulfill human and social goals, well-being, maintaining an efficient economy has become seen as a goal in itself. And by an efficient economy, I mean an economy whose main aim is to grow and generate profits without a particular view of how those profits should be generated or how they should be shared. So there's been a shift about where economic matters are seen as being left to the market, and that the only role of governments is to create the conditions whereby those markets function well. And I think it feels like we've failed as humans, really, to inject moral, social, environmental boundaries into that picture, or parameters in which the economy should operate. And going back to sort of tax or labour conditions, you'll hear that a lot of the reasons why we've changed policies to facilitate flexible labour or to make sure big business can flourish, and we've had to have austerity cuts to allow the market to continue to work. Well, most of those reasons were given are myths. So not only are people serving the economy rather than vice versa, but they're serving an economy based on a particular ideology that we're all sort of co-opted into believing. So what can we do? Which is the more interesting stuff, really, isn't it? And I think I'll focus a little bit on what Quakers are doing. I just want to check the time. Okay. So this is a Quaker called Colin, who is great. He's actually at a die-in outside Energy UK on the day that the Office of National Statistics released the winter death statistics for 2012-2013. And the protest was about fuel poverty and how can we live when we haven't, how do we allow an energy system to exist, which means that thousands of people each winter die from fuel poverty. So that's just my example really of the fact that one of the things we can do is obviously the speaking out and saying no to the parts of the system we don't like. And as Quakers, we've been traditionally quite good at this, particularly on the issue of economics and sustainability. That's where we focused our energy. I know that Quakers in Cornwall, or some Quakers in Cornwall, wrote to the Cornish Guardian, I think it's called, a letter sort of trying to just bring down the myths about austerity and food issues, and sort of name the fact that they are myths and that there is an alternative. And that's kind of one way of feeding into public discourse and trying to provide an alternative. Collins Meeting also did this brilliant action where they went to Barclays Bank in Luton, where they live. They had a meeting for worship, and Quakers can worship anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a particular building. They had it on the steps of Barclays. They then walked into Barclays Bank with a letter with what they thought should be the values by which the economy should be governed, and gave them back to Barclays on the basis that they didn't think Barclays were behaving like they had any values. And you know, that was just 10 friends doing that together, but it had, I think, had a really big impact. And then they got to meet the manager and have a discussion about what they think a bank's responsibilities were. Another example of how we kind of say no, we don't like this system, we don't like this inequality, is last Monday, was it, the 26th of January, was outside the Houses of Parliament with lots of Quakers and other people protesting about the infrastructure bill, which many of you have heard about, sort of has lots of clauses in it which incentivise, facilitate fracking, but also there is a legal duty put on companies and government ministers to extract as much petroleum as possible. Overrides duties to the planet and other duties to the care of people too. And on the 6th to the 15th of March, Quakers around the country will be holding Quaker Equality Week, which is, I think, at least 50 meetings are already doing it, and there'll be vigils outside meetings and on high streets all through that week across the country, with Quakers trying to say, name the fact that there's massive inequality, and name what they think the causes of that are and what the alternatives could be. So I think all this kind of saying no stuff, this objecting, this withdrawing ourselves from the system is really, really important. But friends, Quakers, have been increasingly seeing the need to say, well, as well as that, we also need to think of, and we have a responsibility to try and re-inject human values into discussions on economics, and refuse to be told that they're not appropriate. So we've just started a process across Britain Yearly Meeting of thinking about what a better economic system might look like. And as a first step, we're trying to develop a list of what we think the principles should be that underpin our economic system, that would be compatible with Quaker values or Quaker testimonies. That are those to equality, truth, community, simplicity and peace. And our first step is to sort of write those principles down and share them with Quakers as a kind of working document and as a starting point for thinking and practical action. So what we've said so far is that we are led to seek an economy which reflects the value of all people alive now and of those who may live in a future time. Such an economy would preserve, extend and share our common wealth, which is drawn from the gifts of nature and socially created wealth. This economy would be guided by truer measures of well-being than economic growth, and would enable and encourage the things in our lives that support and sustain us. And a few of the principles that we think would reflect that include the common good having a priority over the need to make profits, the natural world having a value in its own right, the economic system being shaped to foster community life, taxation and social security system being progressive, economic equality being a priority, there being a sufficient safety net, a range of measures being used to judge whether or not the economy is successful, and democracy being at the heart of all of it. We want to use that as a starting point to support conversations and practical action, and that's I guess what I wanted to finish with saying that while we work on thinking about what the alternative is, and while we work on thinking about injecting those values into the conversations we're having, we also just need to get on and do it. And I really believe in the idea of practice and experimentation, and that we can't just wait to come up with the piece of paper that says how it is. We only get to the piece of paper that says how it is by just doing it. And I think that's basically what the rest of today is. I've got lots of examples of how Quakers are doing that, involvement in transition towns and local currencies and food co-ops and energy co-ops, but you'll also have many, many examples that are really locally pertinent, I'm sure. So if you want to find out more about Quakers, there is some information at the back in the right-hand corner, and Mary Hammond is here from Penzance meeting somewhere. Yeah, there. So she's the lady to talk to if you're really interested in finding out about Quakers locally. And in terms of the other work we do, I've put some resources at the back, or that's our website, and that's our Twitter feed, new. We're not very good at being up to date, but we now have Twitter, so that's exciting. And I'll be around for the rest of the day, and I'm really, really excited to be here, and I think it's going to be an amazing learning experience for us as we try and do this kind of thing for Quakers. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.